The marble floors of the Sinclair mansion gleam under the afternoon sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, but Thomas Sinclair barely notices the opulence surrounding him as he climbs the grand staircase. Little did he know that what he was about to witness would shatter everything he thought he knew about his household and force him to confront the kind of man he'd become. Thomas pushes open the nursery door expecting to find Margaret, the nanny he pays handsomely to care for his 6-month-old son Oliver. Instead, he freezes. There, in the antique rocking chair his own mother once used, sits Mia Johnson, the family's housekeeper, cradling his infant son against her chest. Oliver's tiny hand rests against her dark skin as he nurses peacefully, completely content in her arms. What the hell is going on here? Thomas's voice cuts through the silence like a blade. Mia's head snaps up, her dark eyes wide with panic. She immediately begins to cover herself while trying to soothe Oliver, who has started to fuss at the sudden commotion. "Mr. Sinclair, I can explain," she stammers, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas steps into the room, his 6-foot frame filling the doorway. His tailored Armani suit and cold expression paint him as the picture of wealth and authority, but something deeper flickers in his gray eyes. Confusion. Perhaps even concern. "Where's Margaret?" he demands, though his voice has lost some of its initial harshness as he watches Mia gently bounce his son. "She left around noon, sir." Oliver was crying, and he wouldn't take the bottle. He hadn't eaten in hours. Mia's hands shake slightly as she speaks, but her hold on the baby remains steady and protective. Thomas runs a hand through his perfectly styled dark hair, a gesture that would shock his business associates who know him as the unflappable CEO of Sinclair Industries. But what happened next shocked everyone, including himself. Instead of the explosion of anger Mia expects, Thomas takes a step closer, his eyes fixed on his son. Oliver has settled completely, making those soft, satisfied sounds that every parent recognizes. For the first time in months, his son looks genuinely peaceful. "How long has this been going on?" Thomas asks quietly. Mia's throat works as she swallows hard. "This is the first time, I swear." But Oliver, he seems to prefer. "I mean, when Margaret tries to feed him, he fights the bottle. He's been losing weight." The admission hits Thomas like a physical blow. He's been so consumed with quarterly reports and board meetings that he hasn't even noticed his own son struggling. The realization settles in his stomach like ice. But the real shock was still coming. Thomas moves to the window overlooking the manicured gardens, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "My wife doesn't know about this." It's not a question, and Mia recognizes the dangerous territory they're entering. Marie Sinclair has made her feelings about the household staff abundantly clear. They are to be invisible, efficient, and never, under any circumstances, overstep their boundaries. "No, sir." Mrs. Sinclair went to her yoga class at 11. She said she'd be back by 3. Thomas checks his Rolex. It's 2:45. The weight of the moment presses down on both of them. Thomas stares at his son, really looks at him, and sees something he's been too busy to notice. Oliver is thriving in Mia's arms in a way he never seems to with anyone else. The baby's chubby cheeks have color, and his breathing is even in content. "Mr. Sinclair," Mia begins carefully, "I know how this must look, but I would never do anything to harm Oliver. He's just been so fussy lately, and when Margaret couldn't calm him down today, I thought maybe." "Maybe what?" Thomas turns from the window, his expression unreadable. Mia lifts her chin slightly, showing a flash of the strength that got her through nursing school while working 3 jobs to support her younger siblings. Maybe he needed something more than what he was getting. This decision would change everything, though neither of them knows it yet. Thomas finds himself studying this woman who has worked in his home for 2 years, realizing he knows virtually nothing about her beyond her impeccable references and quiet efficiency. She moves through his house like a shadow, cleaning, organizing, anticipating needs before they're voiced. But now, holding his son with such natural tenderness, she seems like an entirely different person. The sound of a car door slamming in the driveway below breaks the spell. "Marie's home," Thomas says, his voice tight with sudden tension. Mia's face goes pale. She knows exactly what Marie Sinclair will think if she walks into this scene without context. The accusation that would follow, the assumptions about impropriety and overstepping boundaries. Her job, the income that supports her family, everything she's worked for, it could all disappear in a matter of minutes. But what happened next shocked everyone, because instead of telling Mia to hide what had transpired, Thomas makes a choice that surprises them both. "I need you to explain to me exactly what's been happening with Oliver," he says quietly, moving closer to where she sits with his son. "And I need the truth, Mia. All of it." The front door opens downstairs, and Marie's voice echoes through the mansion's marble foyer. "Thomas? Are you home? Your car's in the driveway." Mia's eyes meet Thomas's, and in that moment, both of them understand that everything is about to change. Whatever explanation she gives him now will determine not just her future, but possibly the future of his family. Little did either of them know that Marie was already climbing the stairs, drawn by some instinct toward the nursery, and what she was about to discover would challenge everything she believed about her marriage, her home, and the woman she had dismissed as merely the help. "Tell me," Thomas says urgently, his voice barely audible over the sound of Marie's approaching footsteps. "Tell me why my son seems more at peace with you than he's ever been with anyone else." But before Mia can answer, Marie's voice rings out from the hallway, sharp with suspicion and something that sounds dangerously like jealousy. "Thomas? What are you doing up there? And why do I hear Oliver crying?" The irony isn't lost on either of them. Oliver isn't crying at all. In fact, he's never been more content. But explaining that to Marie is going to require a conversation that none of them are prepared for, and the truth about why Mia was able to comfort Thomas's son in a way no one else could is far more complicated than anyone realizes. Thomas looks at Mia one more time, seeing something in her eyes that he can't quite name: desperation, yes, but also a fierce protectiveness that extends far beyond what any employee should feel. "Whatever you're about to tell her," he says quietly, "make sure it's the complete truth. Because I have a feeling we're all going to need it." Mia's hands tremble slightly as she adjusts baby Oliver in her arms, his tiny fingers still grasping at the fabric of her uniform. Thomas stands frozen in the doorway, his expensive suit wrinkled from travel, his piercing blue eyes demanding answers she's not sure she can give. "I can explain, Mr. Sinclair," Mia begins, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. "Your son was crying inconsolably. The nanny, Rebecca, she left around noon saying she had a family emergency. Oliver wouldn't take the bottle, wouldn't stop screaming, and I..." She pauses, searching his face for any sign of understanding. "I have experience with this situation." Thomas steps closer, his expression unreadable. "Experience? What kind of experience, Mia?" The question hangs between them like a blade. Mia takes a deep breath, knowing that honesty might cost her everything. 3 years ago, my sister died in a car accident. She left behind twin babies, my nephews. I took care of them for 8 months while my mother worked double shifts at the hospital. I was still nursing my own daughter then, and the boys, they needed someone. Thomas's corporate mask begins to crack slightly. "Your daughter?" "Lily. She's 7 now, staying with my mother during my work hours." Mia's voice grows stronger as she continues. "When I started working here 2 years ago, I was putting myself through night school, studying early childhood development. Every dollar I earned went toward tuition and my family's needs." A flashback washes over her of those early days in the Sinclair mansion. She remembers dusting the mahogany furniture with reverent care, marveling at the crystal chandeliers while mentally calculating how many months of her salary each piece represented. Thomas had been kind but distant then, always rushing between business meetings and international calls, barely acknowledging the staff who kept his world running smoothly. "You've been studying child development?" Thomas asks, his tone shifting from accusatory to curious. "I graduated last month with my associate's degree," Mia says with quiet pride. "I'm planning to pursue my bachelor's next year, specializing in pediatric nutrition. Working here, watching how you and Mrs. Sinclair raise Oliver, it's taught me so much about different parenting approaches." But wait, did you know that what happens next completely changes everything? Because just as Thomas begins to process this revelation, footsteps echo in the marble hallway. The front door slams with enough force to rattle the imported stained glass windows. Marie Sinclair's voice cuts through the house like a siren. "Thomas? Darling, I'm back early from the charity luncheon. The Weatherbys were being absolutely dreadful about the fundraising targets, so Marie appears in the nursery doorway, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair still immaculate despite the LA heat. She's wearing a cream-colored Chanel suit that costs more than Mia makes in 6 months. Her green eyes take in the scene, her husband standing close to their black maid, who's holding their son in an unmistakably intimate position. The silence stretches like a taut wire ready to snap. What exactly is going on here? Marie's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. Her gaze fixes on Mia with laser precision. "Thomas, why is the help holding our son like that?" Thomas clears his throat. "Marie, there's been a situation. Rebecca left unexpectedly, and Mia was." "I can see what Mia was doing," Marie interrupts, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping her designer purse until her knuckles turn white. "The question is why she thought it was appropriate to do that with our child." Mia feels the walls closing in. She's seen this look before, the way wealthy white women's faces transform when they feel their territory threatened. "Mrs. Sinclair, I can explain. Oliver was distressed, and I only wanted to help." "Help?" Marie's laugh is sharp as broken crystal. "Is that what you call this? Taking advantage of my family's trust?" The baby, sensing the tension, begins to fuss again. Instinctively, Mia rocks him gently, and Oliver settles against her shoulder. This simple gesture seems to enrage Marie further. "Give me my son. Now." But as Mia reluctantly transfers Oliver to his mother's arms, the baby immediately begins crying again, his little fists waving in distress. Marie struggles to soothe him, her movements stiff and uncertain. Thomas watches this painful dance, his jaw tightening with each of his son's wails. Something dark and suspicious flickers in Marie's eyes as she looks from the crying baby back to Mia. "There's something very wrong about all of this, Thomas. Something that doesn't add up." The tension in the nursery reaches a breaking point as Marie's eyes narrow with suspicion. Her perfectly manicured hands clench at her sides as she stares at Mia, who still holds baby Samuel protectively against her chest. "I don't care what sob story you've concocted," Marie snaps, her voice cutting through the air like ice. "No employee in this house has the right to do what you're doing without permission. It's inappropriate and frankly disgusting." Thomas steps between them, his jaw tightening. "Marie, please. Let's handle this rationally." "Rationally?" Marie's voice rises to a near shriek. "Thomas, she's been breastfeeding our son. Our son. Behind our backs while we've been paying that useless nanny a fortune to do her job properly." Mia's voice remains steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Mrs. Sinclair, I understand your concern, but Samuel was crying for over an hour. The nanny was nowhere to be found, and I couldn't just let him suffer." "Where exactly was she?" Thomas asks, his businessman instincts kicking in. Something doesn't add up here, and he's determined to find out what. Before anyone can answer, the sound of heels clicking rapidly down the hallway announces someone's approach. The nanny, Jessica, appears in the doorway looking disheveled, her phone still clutched in her hand. Her face goes pale when she sees the 3 adults standing in tense silence. "Oh. Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, I didn't know you were. I was just..." Jessica stammers, quickly shoving her phone into her pocket. "Where have you been for the past 2 hours?" Thomas's voice carries the authority that built his empire. "Your job is to care for my son, not disappear when he needs you most." Jessica's eyes dart nervously between the family members. I had to take a call. Family emergency. I thought Samuel was sleeping, so You left a 3-month-old infant completely alone?" Marie's anger now shifts toward the nanny, but her fury remains equally intense. The truth becomes crystal clear as Thomas connects the dots. He's seen Jessica on her phone countless times, scrolling through social media, taking personal calls, treating this position like a paid vacation rather than the serious responsibility it is. But what strikes him most is how naturally Mia handled the situation. While his paid professional abandoned her post, Mia stepped in without hesitation, putting Samuel's needs above everything else. "Jessica, you're fired," Thomas says without emotion. "Please pack your things and leave immediately." As Jessica hurries out, sputtering protests and excuses, Marie turns back to Mia with renewed venom. This doesn't change anything. She still overstepped her boundaries in the most intimate way possible. Thomas feels torn between his wife's outrage and his growing respect for Mia's dedication. The sight of his son peaceful and content in Mia's arms tells him everything he needs to know about who truly cares for Samuel's well-being. "Marie, maybe we should." "No, Thomas." Marie's voice echoes through the mansion. "I want her gone. Today. I won't have some maid playing mother to my child." The words hang heavy in the air, and Thomas sees something break in Mia's expression. She's been called worse things before, but hearing it in front of the baby she's grown to love cuts deeper than any previous insult. Thomas is about to speak when footsteps thunder down the hallway. His 12-year-old son Marcus bursts into the nursery, his school backpack still slung over his shoulder and tears streaming down his face. "Dad, you can't fire Mia." Marcus cries out, his voice cracking with emotion. "She's the only one who actually cares about us in this house." The room falls silent except for Samuel's soft breathing against Mia's chest. Thomas stares at his older son in shock, while Marie's face goes white with surprise. Marcus continues through his tears, "She helps me with my homework every day after school. She listens when I tell her about the bullies at school. She's the one who noticed when I was getting sick last month, not you guys. And now you want to get rid of her because she took care of Samuel when nobody else would?" Thomas feels like the ground is shifting beneath his feet as his son's words hit him with devastating accuracy. Thomas stares at his son's tear-streaked face, the boy's words hitting him like a physical blow. The child's emotional plea about Mia echoes in the sudden silence of the mansion's marble foyer. Marie crosses her arms, her expression hardening, but Thomas raises his hand to stop whatever she's about to say. "Wait," Thomas says quietly. "Just wait." Something has shifted in his chest, a recognition he can't quite name. He looks at Mia, who stands with her shoulders squared despite the obvious pain in her eyes. For the first time, he really sees her, not as the help, not as an intruder, but as a human being who has somehow become essential to his son's world. "I need to understand this completely," Thomas announces. "Give me 24 hours. Marie's mouth drops open. "Thomas, you can't be serious." 24 hours, he repeats firmly. "Mia, don't go anywhere. We're going to get to the bottom of this." That night, Thomas finds himself in his study, surrounded by employee files and background checks he'd never bothered to read thoroughly. But what he discovers makes his blood run cold. The nanny's references, half of them don't check out. Her previous employer in Beverly Hills mentions concerns about supervision that were glossed over during hiring. But it's what he finds about Mia that stops him completely. Buried in her original application is a name that makes his hands tremble: Eleanor Johnson Sinclair. His late mother's closest friend, a woman who'd practically raised him alongside his own mother before moving away when Thomas was 12. Mia's grandmother. The pieces start falling into place with devastating clarity. His mother had mentioned Eleanor's granddaughter years ago, how bright she was, how she'd gotten into UCLA on scholarship. Thomas had been too busy with mergers and acquisitions to pay attention. He calls his mother's old attorney, rousing the man from sleep. "Harold, I need you to check something for me. The Johnson family, Eleanor Johnson. Did my mother leave anything for them in her will?" The pause on the other end stretches uncomfortably long. "Thomas, your mother established a trust for Eleanor's family years ago. When Eleanor passed, it was meant to transfer to her granddaughter for education expenses. The law firm handling it went under, and the paperwork got lost in transition. We've been trying to locate the beneficiary for 3 years." Thomas's head spins. Mia has been working 2 jobs, putting herself through night school, supporting her younger siblings, all while a substantial trust fund sits unclaimed because of bureaucratic incompetence. The next morning, he makes a decision that surprises even him. He drives to the address listed in Mia's file, expecting to find her in some modest apartment. Instead, he discovers a small house in East LA where Mia runs what appears to be an informal daycare for working mothers who can't afford childcare. Through the window, he watches her bottle feeding an infant while helping a toddler with alphabet blocks. 3 other children play quietly in the corner. The scene is so natural, so filled with genuine care, that Thomas feels something crack open in his chest. She notices him through the window and freezes. After settling the baby with an older child, she steps outside, her chin lifted defiantly. "Come to fire me in person?" she asks. "No," Thomas says softly. "I came to apologize. And to offer you something." He pulls out a folder containing the trust documents Harold rushed over that morning. "This was supposed to be yours 3 years ago. My mother set it aside for your education, in honor of your grandmother." Mia's eyes widen as she reads the amount. It's enough to finish her nursing degree, pay off her family's debts, and then some. "But that's not all," Thomas continues, his voice growing stronger. "I want to offer you a position. Not as a maid. As my family's childcare coordinator. Full benefits, college tuition assistance, a salary that reflects what you're actually worth." He pauses, watching her process this information. "My son was right. You've done more for him in 6 months than I've managed in 6 years. I want to learn how to be the father he deserves, and I think you could help me figure that out." Mia stares at him for a long moment, then at the trust documents in her hands. "And your wife?" "Marie and I need to have some very serious conversations about a lot of things," Thomas admits. "But this decision isn't hers to make. It's yours." The weight of the moment hangs between them. Inside the house, a child starts crying, and Mia's instinct to respond is immediate and visceral. Thomas sees it, the way her entire being orients toward care, toward nurturing, toward making things better. "I need time to think," Mia says finally. "Of course. But Mia?" Thomas's voice catches slightly. "Whatever you decide about the job, that trust fund is yours. It always was." As he turns to leave, Mia calls out, "Mr. Sinclair? Why are you doing this?" Thomas looks back at her, this remarkable woman who saw his child not as a duty but as a precious human being worthy of love. Because sometimes it takes a stranger to teach you how to see your own family clearly. But as Thomas drives away, his phone buzzes with a text that makes his blood freeze. It's from Marie. "We need to talk. Now. I know about the trust fund. I know about everything." Mia takes a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she looks at Thomas with newfound determination. "I'll accept your offer," she says quietly, "but only if we can do this the right way. Your family needs healing, not just another employee with a fancy title." Thomas nods slowly, understanding flooding his features. "What do you mean?" "I mean Marie needs to be part of this conversation. She's hurting, Thomas. She sees me as a threat because she feels like she's losing her place in this family. But the truth is, we're all just trying to do what's best for little James." The next morning, Thomas calls for a family meeting in the sunlit conservatory. Marie enters hesitantly, her defensive posture softening when she sees Mia's genuine expression of concern. For the first time in months, the 3 adults sit together without accusations or suspicion between them. "I owe you both an apology," Thomas begins, his voice heavy with emotion. "I've been so focused on business success that I forgot the most important job I have, being present for my family. Mia, you stepped in when I failed, and Marie, you've been carrying this household burden alone while I was absent." Marie's eyes fill with tears. "I was jealous," she admits, looking at Mia. "Seeing how naturally you connected with James, how he responded to you, it made me feel inadequate as a mother." Mia reaches across the table, gently touching Marie's hand. "You're an amazing mother, Marie. James adores you. I was just helping during a difficult time." There's room in this child's life for all of us to love and support him. The conversation that follows changes everything. Thomas announces his decision to restructure his work schedule, committing to being home for dinner every night and weekends. Marie agrees to work with Mia on creating a more nurturing household environment. Most importantly, they decide to replace the negligent nanny with a proper support system that includes everyone. But the transformation extends far beyond the Sinclair mansion walls. Word spreads through their affluent neighborhood about the family's new approach to childcare and community involvement. Mia's background in social work and her connections to local charities become valuable assets that Thomas enthusiastically supports. Within 3 months, the Sinclair Foundation launches its first community initiative, a program providing childcare support and educational resources to working mothers in underserved communities. The launch event takes place in the very community center where Mia once volunteered during her breaks from the mansion. Standing before a crowd of families, community leaders, and media representatives, Thomas delivers a speech that reveals just how much he's changed. I used to measure success by the size of my bank account and the square footage of my home. But true wealth isn't about what you accumulate, it's about the lives you touch and the community you help build. Mia stands beside him, no longer just an employee but a respected program director and family friend. She addresses the crowd with confidence and passion. This program exists because one family chose to look beyond their own walls and see the needs in their community. But it will succeed because all of us choose to support each other. The audience erupts in applause as Thomas announces the foundation's initial commitment, $2 million to fund childcare programs, educational scholarships, and family support services across Los Angeles. In the months that follow, little James thrives in an environment filled with love, attention, and multiple caring adults. Marie embraces her role as a hands-on mother while also becoming actively involved in the foundation's work. Thomas discovers that being present for bedtime stories and weekend park visits brings him more satisfaction than any business deal ever could. The story comes full circle one evening as the 3 adults watch James take his first steps in the mansion's garden. He toddles between all of them, reaching for each person with equal joy and trust. "You know," Thomas says, watching his son's face light up with achievement, "that day I found Mia nursing James, I thought I was catching someone doing something wrong. But really, I was witnessing something beautiful, pure, selfless love in action." Mia smiles, holding James as he babbles happily. Sometimes the most important moments come disguised as problems. They force us to see what really matters. The Sinclair family's story becomes a beacon of hope in their community, proving that when people choose understanding over judgment, collaboration over competition, and love over fear, extraordinary transformations become possible. As the camera pulls back from the mansion's warm, glowing windows, viewers can see not just a house, but a home where every person, regardless of their background, is valued, respected, and loved. This is what happens when a billionaire catches his maid nursing his son and chooses compassion over suspicion. What stories of unexpected kindness have changed your life? Share them in the comments below and let's celebrate the Mias and Thomases in our own communities who choose love over judgment every single day.